The sun rose over a remote stretch of the Pacific, its rays glinting off an endless expanse of turquoise water. Yet beneath this serene beauty, a storm of fire and steel was brewing. A battle that would leave scars both visible and unseen, a clash so fierce that history itself seemed eager to forget it. This is the story of a forgotten Pacific battle, a struggle fought with a ferocity that rivaled the great campaigns, yet was nearly erased from memory. It began in late 1943 as the Allies pressed across the Pacific in a grueling island-hopping campaign designed to bring Japan closer to surrender. Each island held strategic importance, but also served as a psychological foothold, a message that the tide was turning. Among these islands, one name barely whispers through the pages of history. Its beaches were volcanic black, fringed with treacherous coral reefs, and its jungles were thick, choking, and alive with the sounds of unseen predators. American intelligence had uncovered reports of Japanese fortifications, though little detail reached the commanders. They knew only that the island housed a garrison, a relatively small force, but one well entrenched and burning with the intensity of desperation. Estimates ranged in the hundreds. But those who would face them soon learned that numbers mattered little when resolve burned so brightly. As the first wave of amphibious craft approached the shore, the soldiers aboard could hear the faint, terrifying crackle of machine guns in the distance, a warning that the calm was a lethal illusion. The landing was not met with open beaches, but with a hellish landscape of hidden pillboxes, artillery nestled in the cliffs, and mines buried beneath sand so fine it seemed almost harmless. Each step forward was a battle in itself. Each yard of progress was paid for in blood. From above, Navy planes circled, dropping bombs meant to soften the defenses, but the enemy was cunning, retreating into a labyrinth of tunnels and camouflaged bunkers, only to emerge and strike with lethal precision. One platoon, moving along the northern ridge, found itself pinned by a sudden barrage of mortar fire. Soldiers ducked behind shattered rocks, their ears ringing and hearts pounding, yet they pressed on, driven by training, camaraderie, and the sheer primal need to survive. The Japanese defenders, though outnumbered, were masters of their terrain. They knew every tree, every hollow, every narrow ravine. They used the jungle to conceal snipers and ambush parties, moving as silently as shadows, striking without warning, and then melting back into the impenetrable foliage. Communication was perilous. Radio lines snapped under relentless bombardment, and runners often fell to unseen sniper fire. Officers shouted orders through the chaos, their voices swallowed by the roar of artillery and the screaming wind. In the dense, oppressive heat, exhaustion set in almost immediately. Men collapsed under the relentless sun, only to be dragged back into the fight by their comrades. Every life became a thread in a fragile fabric of survival. Beneath the dark jungle canopy, the battle descended into a nightmarish labyrinth. Darkness provided cover, but multiplied the danger. Patrols moved with extreme caution, their every step threatened by expertly laid booby traps designed to maim and kill. Every sound could signal the approach of an unseen enemy. Yet, amidst the terror, acts of sheer heroism emerged. Soldiers were seen carrying wounded comrades through deadly crossfires. Medics administered aid under direct fire, and small, determined teams executed. daring flanking maneuvers to overturn entrenched positions. At sea, the naval forces faced their own trials. Rough waters and unexpected reefs challenged every landing operation, while Japanese artillery fired from hidden coastal batteries. Destroyers and cruisers returned fire, their shells screaming through the air, explosions throwing geysers of water and sand skyward. The island had become a cauldron of fire, steel, and smoke, a brutal spectacle visible from miles away, yet one that would remain largely unrecorded in the official annals of history. As days bled into nights, the battle settled into a grueling war of attrition. The Americans, hardened by the island-hopping campaign, adapted their strategy. Reconnaissance teams moved with painstaking caution, mapping enemy positions and spotting the hidden tunnels that allowed the Japanese to reposition like ghosts. This intelligence allowed for targeted bombardments, as artillery units and offshore ships prepared to rain shells on fortified positions with devastating precision. The island became a synchronized theater of destruction where timing was everything, and a single miscommunication could lead to tragic friendly fire. Inside the dense jungle, the Japanese defenders showcased remarkable resourcefulness. Their tunnel networks were not just hideouts, but elaborate subterranean highways, allowing them to maintain supply lines, stage ambushes, and inflict heavy casualties before disappearing without a trace. Their discipline was unyielding. Each man understood the stakes, and surrender was a concept alien to their training and culture. This fierce determination transformed the landscape into a deadly maze, where every ridge, cave, and hollow could conceal a lethal threat. On the black sand beaches, engineers and naval crews worked under constant duress. Amphibious craft landed reinforcements and evacuated the wounded, while combat engineers cleared mines and improvised obstacles, their every movement watched by sniper scopes. Amid the relentless violence, extraordinary acts of courage became the norm. A single soldier might charge a machine gun nest to allow his squad to advance. Medics navigated crossfire to reach the wounded, performing miracles with limited supplies. Small squads executed precise flanking maneuvers, turning ambushes into opportunities for hard-won gains. In these moments, human ingenuity and bravery shone brightly against the grim backdrop of war. Yet, the psychological and physical toll was immense. Soldiers faced constant heat, humidity, and exhaustion while navigating treacherous terrain laced with traps. The battle tested not only combat skills, but endurance, patience, and morale, pushing even the most seasoned troops to their absolute limits. Reconnaissance teams soon discovered the chilling extent of the Japanese preparations. Hidden caves were stocked with supplies, medical kits, and detailed maps, evidence of meticulous planning for a prolonged conflict. The defenders had anticipated this struggle, and their foresight made each American assault more dangerous. Clearing these caves required careful coordination, explosives, and often brutal, hand-to-hand combat in pitch-black confines. The Americans realized that every skirmish was part of a larger, calculated strategy designed to maximize resistance and inflict maximum casualties. Naval and air support played critical roles, with destroyers providing thunderous firepower and aircraft conducting risky strafing runs through tropical storms and anti-aircraft fire. The battle unfolded simultaneously across land, sea, and air, a triad of combat that demanded courage and precision from every participant. By the end of the first week, the Americans had made significant inroads, securing a tenuous foothold on the island, but the Japanese remained defiant, their counterattacks targeting exposed flanks and supply lines with devastating effect. Every advance required careful planning, courage, and a heavy price. By the third week, the battle had condensed into a brutal, close-quarters fight for the island's heart. The Americans, having secured the outer defenses, now prepared for the final push into the most heavily fortified zones. The air itself grew thick with the smell of cordite, damp earth, and decay. Artillery and airstrikes pounded the remaining Japanese strongholds in a relentless prelude to the infantry assault. Then, the specialized units advanced, moving under covering fire into a landscape that had become a scarred testament to war. The jungle was now a shattered mess of splintered trees and craters, offering little cover. The fighting descended into a series of deadly, intimate encounters in cramped bunkers and dark ravines. The Japanese defenders, though severely depleted and cut off from reinforcement, fought with a desperate, unwavering intensity. They had entrenched themselves in a final network of caves and cliffside bunkers, and each position had to be cleared with grenade, flamethrower, and bayonet. Every yard of progress was a hard-won achievement, paid for in blood and sheer exertion. Inside the tunnels, the war became a claustrophobic nightmare. Hand-to-hand combat erupted in the confined, stifling darkness, lit only by the flash of grenades and small arms fire. Soldiers reported eerie encounters in the subterranean gloom, finding hidden stockpiles of food, ammunition, and medical supplies that spoke of a meticulous organization designed to prolong resistance to the very end. These tunnels, some stretching deep into the island's core, allowed the defenders to strike unpredictably, amplifying the psychological strain on the American forces. The constant threat of a silent enemy emerging from the earth weighed heavily on every man, casualties mounted relentlessly. Medics navigated these deadly paths to reach the wounded, while soldiers carried their comrades across open fire zones, acts of sacrifice that defined the bonds forged in the crucible of combat. Exhaustion was a universal enemy, but the shared mission and the reliance on one another forged an unbreakable solidarity. Amidst the terror, individual acts of bravery multiplied and became legend among the men. A soldier would single-handedly assault a fortified position to silence a machine gun that had pinned down his entire company. Another would volunteer to crawl forward and mark targets for the naval guns, knowing the act would draw immediate and lethal fire. These were not just moments of combat, they were deliberate choices to sacrifice for the man beside you. The leadership of officers and NCOs proved crucial, navigating the fine line between aggressive action and cautious preservation of their men's lives. Every decision carried enormous weight, as the smallest misstep in this final violent phase could cost dozens of lives. The coordination between infantry, artillery, and naval support reached a peak of precision, a complex dance of destruction where a radio call could bring a storm of steel upon a single pillbox. Yet, the jungle still limited visibility, forcing the ground forces into grueling personal fights where survival often came down to speed, luck, and a sharp blade. Finally, with the central ridges secured and the main tunnel complexes sealed or collapsed, the organized resistance began to crumble. The Americans launched coordinated assaults on the last isolated strongholds, using methodical, brutal tactics to eliminate each pocket of defiance. The fight was as much about perseverance as it was about firepower. The men pressed forward, driven by a weary determination to see the end of the nightmare. When the final position was cleared, a strange, heavy silence fell over the island. The relentless roar of artillery, the rattle of machine guns, and the shouts of men were replaced by an eerie quiet, broken only by the crackle of fires and the moaning wind. The island was officially secured. The cost was staggering. Hundreds of lives had been lost, countless more were wounded, and the landscape itself was transformed into a desolate, scarred monument to the ferocity of the struggle. The men who remained stood amidst the wreckage, too exhausted for celebration, feeling only the profound weight of what had been endured and what had been taken. In the immediate aftermath, the true scope of the devastation became clear. The beaches, once pristine and volcanic black, were now pockmarked with craters and littered with the wreckage of war-abandoned weapons, shattered landing craft, and the splintered remains of fortifications. The jungle, though already beginning its slow, relentless reclamation, bore the indelible scars of close-quarters combat. Trees shattered by artillery, undergrowth flattened by the tread of men and vehicles, and the ominous dark mouths of collapsed tunnels. The human toll was profound and personal. Soldiers moved through the eerie quiet, tending to the wounded with a numb diligence and collecting the fallen with a solemn reverence. Medics and chaplains worked tirelessly, providing solace amidst the lingering chaos, their own courage a quiet testament to the endurance of humanity in the face of unimaginable horror. Each life lost and each life saved wove another thread into the complex, tragic narrative of this forgotten battle. Investigations into the Japanese defenses revealed a sophistication that bordered on genius. The elaborate tunnel networks, fortified caves, and hidden bunkers spoke of meticulous planning and a deep understanding of the terrain, all designed to prolong resistance and inflict maximum casualties. The Americans, having experienced the lethal efficiency of these positions firsthand, gathered invaluable insights that would inform their tactics in the subsequent campaigns across the Pacific from Iwo Jima to Okinawa. Every discovered map and stockpiled cache of supplies underscored the tactical brilliance and unwavering resolve of the defenders. For the Japanese soldiers, the island was more than a strategic location. It represented honor, resilience, and a final defiant stand against overwhelming odds. Their tenacity and intimate knowledge of the terrain had prolonged the conflict far beyond initial projections, forcing the Americans to fight for every bloody yard gained. The cultural and psychological weight of their resistance highlighted the profound complexities of the war in the Pacific. Yet back home, the battle barely registered in the newspapers. It was overshadowed by the colossal, publicly celebrated clashes at Leyte Gulf, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. For the wider world, it was as if this fierce struggle had never happened. But for the men who fought there, the memory remained vivid and indelible. They carried the island with them in their sleepless nights, haunted by the sudden, violent loss of comrades in ambushes or the relentless thunder of artillery. Their personal accounts, detailed in letters, diaries, and later oral histories, revealed not just the mental strain, but also the extraordinary courage that defined their experience. The countless acts of rescuing wounded under fire, the single-handed neutralization of fortified positions, and the small, profound moments of camaraderie that defied the horrors surrounding them. These accounts, preserved in living memory, became the primary guardians of a history that official records had largely ignored. In the decades that followed, historians painstakingly pieced together the full story through these personal narratives, faded photographs, and declassified documents. These sources revealed not only the battle's strategic importance, but also its deep human dimension. The universal experiences of courage, fear, endurance, and sacrifice. The forgotten battle emerged as a powerful microcosm of the entire Pacific War, highlighting its unique brutality, its unpredictability, and the sheer heroism inherent in such isolated island campaigns. Standing on the island today, one can still sense the echoes of that desperate struggle. The ruined bunkers, the collapsed tunnels, and the scarred vegetation serve as silent, powerful witnesses. The terrain itself speaks of men who faced impossible odds and endured unimaginable hardship, a reminder of the immense human cost, the tactical complexity, and the profound bravery displayed in a battle that history nearly erased. This forgotten Pacific battle stands as a timeless testament to the resilience of the human spirit. It demonstrates that even in obscurity, acts of courage, strategy, and sacrifice leave a lasting impact. The defenders' steadfast resolve and the attackers' relentless perseverance exemplify the extremes of human endurance and determination. These are lessons that transcend the battlefield, offering us all insight into our own capacity for courage in the face of adversity. By remembering this battle, we honor all who fought and suffered there. We recognize that history is not only written from celebrated victories, but also woven from the hidden struggles that shaped outcomes, defined strategies, and tested the very limits of human endurance. The men who survived, and those who did not, deserve to be remembered not as mere statistics, but as individuals whose actions and sacrifices left an indelible mark on the world. If this story of courage and remembrance resonated with you, if you believe that these forgotten heroes deserve their place in the light, then please help us share their legacy. Like this video, share it with someone who values history, and subscribe to this channel for more stories that bring the hidden chapters of our past to life. We would be honored to hear your thoughts or any stories of your own in the comments below. Let us ensure that the valor and sacrifice of these men are never forgotten.